Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to 2023, beginning of a new year, and the first episode of That's Football, deemed first full year of football.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially with NFL's about getting close for playoff time. XFL starts training camp next week. USFL starts in April. And let's not forget about the indoor leagues, too. And then the CFL starts summer. Boy, talk about a lot of stuff to talk about in between.
Hey, football all throughout the calendar year, man. So definitely an exciting time of year as far as football is concerned. Obviously, though, a little bit of news that puts a slight damper on the football talks here today. Of course, whether you were watching the game last night or not, the biggest story in football right now is DeMar Hamlin, safety for the Buffalo Bills, second year safety. Believe only 23 or 24 years old, made a play last night on Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins, hits him, goes down, gets up, and immediately collapses right after. We learned, pretty late into yesterday evening that it was a cardiac arrest event that DeMar Hamlin suffered on the field. CPR was performed on him, had the AED brought out on the field as well. As you can, for those of us who were watching the game, you saw a lot of Buffalo players shaken up and emotional about that, even some Bengals players as well. As of right now, current state for DeMar, he is still hospitalized, intubated, currently has a pulse, good vitals, but is not breathing on his own just yet. So definitely hoping and praying for the best for him because, while we've watched a number of football games, and Will, I know even for you participated in plenty of them yourself as well, definitely not something that we're used to seeing and nothing that is good to see in any level of football.
Any sport for that matter.
Well, yes, any sport. So definitely hopes and prayers for the absolute best and speedy recovery for him in going through this situation and obviously taking a lot of the focus away from, some of the on-the-field stuff that we would typically talk about. But as far as that game is concerned, that's kind of the biggest story coming out of yesterday. We'll definitely get more updates and things here throughout the week. That game last night between the Bengals and Bills, which was pretty big one as far as playoff seeding ramifications go, game has been postponed. There's no plans to play the game this week. Well, yeah, from a scheduling standpoint, not really any time. They literally, if they were going to play the game, it would have had to been tonight or tomorrow since the new week always starts on a Thursday for the NFL.
And the thing about this is like cardiac arrest, especially with the one it looks like it could have happened when he took a hit to the chest. And as someone that have taken hits, heck, I got hit with a girl's indoor shot put, which is about 6 to 8 pounds, like right at the chest, and that didn't happen to me. So that type of stuff can happen. Plus, this is strangely, it's a St. Louis team that had this, and two hockey players with the Blues. First one in '98, Chris Pronger had almost the exact same, not as severe. I'll explain that here in a moment. Then we had Jay Bowmeister that had that 2 seasons ago, which he just collapsed on the ice. That situation, though, he was able to get back in resuscitation and go, but he didn't play, and they were able to continue this. This situation, he got CPR, but he had to rush to the hospital so they can get that heart rate back to normal. And like you said, he still has a tube, and he's still unconscious as of right now. Neither his family or representative said he has not waken up as of yet.
Yep.
I do, though, one thing, though, there has been links for GoFundMe for the charity he does. That's for toy drives, and also I believe there's one that his mother's involved with for daycare. So
yeah, I don't remember the exact name of the charity that his mother oversees, but I do. Chasing M's, I believe, is the charity that he started. I believe it goes to, he was doing a toy drive, but a lot of that proceeds goes to inner city kids here throughout the U.S.
And it received a lot of support.
A lot of support. I think the initial goal for that fundraiser was $2,500, and I think as of a few minutes ago they had gotten as high as $4 million. So outpouring of support for DeMar given his situation and.
Both normal and celebrities, heck, even pro wrestler Chris Jericho donated up to $10,000. for his charity, and hoping for the best. Hopefully he wakes up soon. And I know the one reason, because there was also some controversy with that game, because it seemed like they were going to start up within 5 minutes, but the coach was like,
Well, and so to that point, I know, there's been some statements put out both by the league, by Roger Goodell himself. Troy Vincent put out a statement, I believe, on behalf of the Players Association. Watching the broadcast last night, because I think Joe Buck got a little bit of heat from the league on this, and ESPN kind of as a byproduct of that. Joe Buck was saying on the broadcast last night that the plan was give the teams 5 minutes to resume play, and then we'll go back to playing as normal after that. That was not like a falsehood. That was the plan. From everything that we saw happening on the field, referees were going up to both teams. Players were trying to get loose from what it seemed like. They were going to resume the game. The players, though, and their coaches as well, to their credit, said, look, let's go ahead and, just cancel all of this right now. Went back to the locker room, and then the decision was ultimately made by Roger Goodell and the league to go ahead and move forward with postponing.
And you could just see in a place, especially on both quarterbacks, dear Lord, they looked like it was just like shocked, scared, and
well, and to be honest, it wasn't even the quarterbacks for me that put the situation in perspective. Because truthfully, like I was watching the game, but I was going from watching it on my phone to getting it set up on the TV. And in between that is when that play happened. And it was actually Trey White, who Bills cornerback, who just recently came back from an ACL injury of his own. I've never seen, and obviously there's a cliche, not seeing a whole lot of grown men cry, but I've never seen a player, especially a guy that's been in the league as long as Trey has. I've never seen him that emotional in a game, especially that early in a game. Like, mind you, this play happened like midway through the first quarter. This was not late into the game. This was not, something where we had a full game's worth of adrenaline and emotion going before this. So to see that's when it's like, okay, well, this is definitely a much more scary situation on the field than what we probably even understand sitting at home.
Yeah. And like any sport, especially football or content like we expect from hockey, it's a risk for injury, for anything. Of course, I don't know. Of course, there was a Jaguars player or guard that retired that he just had a heart attack too and died too for the Jaguars. I can't remember his name right now over the weekend too, and he was fine just a few days ago.
Yeah, man, it's it's crazy. You hear Ryan Clark on ESPN's broadcast last night talking about his sickle cell situation playing up in Denver some years ago.
Oh, I remember
Dominique Foxworth, also of ESPN, talking about playing in a preseason game in which a San Francisco 49ers player they had played against died in the locker room. But still, nothing like having to see a fellow player, or in the Bills' case, a fellow teammate on the field receiving, like life-saving procedures. So definitely a scary situation all around. A lot of people, of course, trying to use this in one way or another to, try to pick a side on social media.
Conspiracy theories. I know they're
save
something
that
dealt with one thing, and heck, I'll just say we don't even know if he had it or not. So I'll just end it there. You probably know what I'm talking about.
A lot of speculation on that front. You got, people who are, questioning whether or not the league made the right decision, questioning how long it took them to make that decision, all that. Biggest thing right now is we just want DeMar Hamlin to be able to go back to a quality way of life after all of this, regardless of if that includes football.
Yeah. Hopefully he wakes up. He needs to probably take a rest for the rest of the season.
Well, and
after, like I said, he probably is wearing like a heart monitor for a bit before.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, I don't know if that is even going to be a decision that he gets the opportunity to make himself. That might just be something that comes with, the recovery process. So definitely praying for his recovery and, got him in our thoughts here. We're going to try to, kind of pivot to actual, on the field football from Sunday and, previous days. With that, go back to Sunday night football, which we got a lot of games that took place this week, as well as a lot of games that will take place next week that has some playoff implications. Steelers and Ravens being kind of up at the top of that list because now somehow, some way, the Steelers have found themselves back in the playoff race yet again.
Are you and I getting sick and tired of the Ravens? It's like they play good, then suddenly they just drag the.
Well, I think we've seen this from the Ravens, right? Really, this entire Lamar Jackson experience, and again, I mentioned his name not to put this on him because he's not playing right now; he's injured. But there's just a lot of inconsistency that comes with the Ravens. Big game for them, which, truthfully, they had a playoff spot clinched. They knew that they could have, their chance to see Cincinnati next week. So the game may not have meant as much to them, obviously, as the Steelers were. Also, Mike Tomlin, man, I know he's not going to win Coach of the Year. This is probably as good of a case as you can make, though, given not only the team that he came into the season with, but to start 2-6 and to now be 500 at 8-8 and have a chance to potentially make the playoffs next week. Probably his best coaching job yet to avoid a potential losing season yet
even
again.
if they had a losing season, he's still going to keep that job.
Oh yeah,
It's also still weird to me since Week 18 started last year, and for a second year, this is the most meaningful Week 18 as of yet.
Yeah,
it's still weird to see. It's not playoffs yet, but looking at the standings. And 8-8, and they're still not done yet.
Still not done, man. Still not done.
You can no longer finish 500 unless there's a tie.
Yeah.
Now,
funny enough, though, the teams that have tied this year, I think the Giants are the only team with a tie that are going to finish above 500. So they're, typically having a tie doesn't always help you. But the Steelers, they get a big win on Sunday Night Football, 16-13. Kenny Pickett with a big touchdown throw at the end of the game to Najee Harris to complete that comeback. They were down 13-9, down pretty much all of that game. And so now the Ravens, I believe, dropped to 10-6. Their playoff seeding is still a little bit up in the air given the situation, obviously, with their game against the Bengals and the Bengals not having played their game yet this week. You've also got, like I said, the Steelers now where we'll get into the different playoff scenarios a little bit later in the show, but they don't need a whole lot of help to get in, but they do have to win next week against the Browns team that we'll also talk a small amount about here a little bit later in the show as well, since they kind of crushed playoff hopes for another team this past Sunday. Now we talked about this week's Sunday Night Football game, a team that will now be playing next week on Sunday Night Football, the Green Bay Packers. Emphatic win is probably an understatement. Win 41-17 in the game that was not even as close as that score would make it seem. Packers have won 4 straight games. They now have the opportunity, if they win next week, they are in the playoffs. If you would have told me this a month ago, I would have told you are a fool. I've seen the Packers movies before. That does not end good for them. And sure enough, here we are. They found a way to scrap and claw their way back into the playoff race. Vikings kind of going in the opposite direction now, have dropped to the 3rd seed in the NFC since they do not hold the tiebreaker with the now 2nd-seeded San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, because, see, Viking fans are furious right now because you could have stopped Aaron Rodgers from coming to the playoffs again and also just sealed the deal because, trust me, I know Packers are historic, but even some people are getting tired of them always being in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I know it's similar to the Cardinals here in baseball, but there's a little bit of a difference.
Well, I think the biggest difference with that is that even, and this is probably a little bit biased coming from us being from St. Louis, but with the Cardinals, more times than not, when they make the playoffs, they at least have a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody feels like this Packers team is a Super Bowl contender.
Nope.
So I think that's where the frustration is. It's like, hey, okay, if y'all not going to, really be able to take this thing all the way, can we get somebody else that's a little bit more fun to watch?
It's kind of similar when we talk about the AFC South here in a few minutes.
Yeah. And so, and really quickly, too, with the NFC, because we'll talk about this with the playoff scenarios that they have in place. I kind of think this Vikings loss, weirdly enough, might be a benefit for them.
Maybe.
And the only reason I say that is if you're the Vikings and you look at the situation, okay, you fall from being the 2 seed to being the 3 seed. Well, you still get a playoff home game, round 1. You're probably now going to play the Giants instead of the Packers, which Giants played well this year, but a little bit more one-dimensional. You can kind of, not quite as much talent maybe as you would have on the Packers in terms of raw talent on the roster. Now, the Giants are definitely a much better coach team, but the Vikings have also already beaten the Giants. You can say they've already beaten the Packers, but based on what we just saw on Sunday, I don't think if they ran into each other the third time that the Vikings are coming out on top.
Yeah, Giants, the way to stop them is just stop Saquon Barkley and you're done with them.
Right, and that's also with the Vikings, the best way to beat them right now is passing the ball. Daniel Jones, he might throw you a pick or two. So, definitely not as daunting of a task playing the Giants as it would be playing a division opponent for the third time, this season. So, we'll see how that plays out. We mentioned the 49ers. They had probably the 49ers and Raiders, probably the best game of all the football games that we saw.
Formerly known as Battle of the Bay, but no longer.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Vegas Raiders decided to end that party and move out the Bay. So, 49ers and Raiders, 37-34, overtime win for the 49ers. A lot was being made last week because, of course, this was after our show last week. Derek Carr was benched by the Las Vegas Raiders. Mm-hmm. They handled that pretty bad. I just want to put that out here.
I know, but I will say they hit the back of Stidham. Here's his,
Yeah.
Here's his stats: 23 out of 34, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns. Playing like it's a college game.
Yeah.
And of course, his leading target, Devontae Adams. The reason Devontae Adams is in Las Vegas is because of Derek Carr.
Yeah.
7 receptions, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns, and according to this, the McCaffrey, that's the one thing that keeps going for the Niners.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. McCaffrey's been a stabilizing force for them.
We'll talk about the NFC South here, too, because, well, you know what I mean.
I've got them right up next here.
Because the thing now, because Derek Carr, unfortunately, with the world of social media that we are now, he has unfollowed both their accounts on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook.
Love it. Love to see it.
Heck, even Derek Carr's brother is coming to his defense, and he is on analysis, I believe, on NFL Network, if I remember correctly.
Hey, look, so to my point, Derek Carr, I hate how that was handled for him. But
it's not his fault.
It's not all his fault. What I will say though is, I did not expect the team to play that well with Jarrett Stidham based on what I've seen from Jarrett Stidham before Sunday. But Jarrett Stidham looked good. He looked good. I can't lie. I got a chance to see some different parts of that game, man. Look, he put some of those passes in places that I hadn't seen Derek Carr put them before.
Remind me, is Carr still under contract or is this his last year?
So the dirty details on the Derek Carr contract is he is still under contract next year. However, I believe a lot of the guaranteed money that is owed to him has been paid out. Mm-hmm. And his contract would have fully become guaranteed if he had either gotten injured before the end of this season or if he is on the roster. I want to say he's one of those like March 1st guys. So more than likely he's going to be traded at some point between the Super Bowl and the beginning of March.
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of a different player. I know if there was a player being cut, they would save about $30 million off the cap. I'm not sure if that's Derek.
Yeah, I think so. For Derek, I think his total cap hit if he were to stay on the team is like $36 million.
Yeah,
but it's like 16 if they cut or trade him.
If I was Mark Davis, one, I would not have that stupid haircut. I would try to find a good trade partner for Derek Carr because if you say it's true that guaranteed money is already paid out, there's not much of a cap hit for other teams.
Well, and so it's also one of those things for Mark Davis too, where if he were any other owner, he probably would just fire Josh McDaniels. But he doesn't have the money to pay McDaniels and Gruden, which he's still paying John Gruden. So the cheapest way out for him now is to get rid of Derek Carr and try to find another quarterback.
Gruden, if there was some evidence from the Commanders thing that helped his lawsuit, so
Yeah. So he's still collecting checks, sitting at home, and probably gonna get a lawsuit check as well.
Yeah.
So, the Raiders, they still trying to figure some things out. We'll see what happens with Derek Carr. 49ers, in the meantime, have now moved into the number 2 seed in the NFC. We'll again mention kind of how they can hold on to that number 2 seed going into next week's games. NFC South, though, we had this one teed up. The Tampa Bay Bucks, man. They fall into the same exact category for me as the Green Bay Packers. I don't know how they keep doing it. All I know is I look up 1 minute, they down 10 points. The next minute I look up, it's the fourth quarter, and Tom Brady is throwing winning a game, time, whatever, touchdowns, and they're taking the lead right back.
Speaking as someone that has Tom Brady as his fantasy quarterback, I was like, oh, this ain't going good. Then I'm getting updates of like touchdown, and him and Mike Evans were having a game.
I mean, and then I'm getting those touchdown notifications too because of course one of the fantasy championships I'm playing in, Lamar Jackson was the quarterback I started the season with, but of course had to pivot to Tom Brady once Lamar went out. I'm getting these updates and it's like 67-yard touchdown, 72-yard touchdown. I'm like, are y'all just like literally just heaving this up and it's like go get it? Mike's down here somewhere.
Here, get it up.
Yep, just letting it fly, man. So Tom Brady, instead of looking like an old Tom Brady, looked like the old Tom Brady on Sunday. 432 passing yards, all 3 of his touchdowns to Mike Evans. Mike Evans, 7 catches, 207 yards with those 3 TDs.
Yeah,
so both of them jumping back in the time machine from about a couple years.
And because of this, Buccaneers are now the NFC South champions, and the other 3, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Falcons, are all officially eliminated from playoff contention.
Yep.
One thing, too, this just popped up here. Apparently, there's a source that actually Panthers owner David Tepper has been in contact with Jim Harbaugh for a coaching job.
Yeah, so Jim Harbaugh, current University of Michigan head coach, which, of course, we'll talk about his performance over the weekend. Current University of Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh, personally, again, might be a little bit biased. I would think just keeping Steve Wilkes, even if it's just for a year, makes a little bit more sense.
And I will say one thing, because it looks like, why am I forgetting his name? The Jets quarterback they traded for.
Oh, Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
yes.
he did fine.
Well, Sam Darnold had a hell of a game. I think the problem for the Panthers was that special teams kind of did them in on Sunday. You had to play where I believe Tampa's punter, he dropped the ball and then was able to pick it back up and punt it, and still it bounced out at the 1 yard line.
Another thing too, St. Louis, this is one of the worst weeks you had for choosing what games to put on local television.
We got terrible games. Terrible games here on the local stations in St. Louis. I'm just gonna there's no punchlines, no sugarcoat, none of that.
Me and Josh are not gonna pay $200 for NFL Sunday tickets. Especially whatever is going to happen with YouTube, but who knows how much that's going to be starting in a few months. Maybe Red Zone, but not.
At this point, man, I might have to just bite the bullet and pay for that new Sunday ticket. If these are going to be my options moving forward,
or if it's true with they're doing a specific team option, we'll see. That'll be interesting how much that. I don't know if it was me. I would do either $50 to $100 for a single team option. I don't know.
But see, I the way I see it is like, shit, if I'm gonna pay the $100 for one team, I might as well pay $200 for the whole league. So
unless they do some weird bundle, which that might be an interesting concept.
Never know with Google, man. So the other NFC team to clinch a playoff spot this Sunday, the New York Football Giants, are back in the playoffs for the first time since 2016. Got a big win over Jeff Saturday's Colts, 38-10. Career day for Daniel Jones. I mean,
yeah, it's weird that you see for rushing that he has more rushing yards than Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Yeah,
91 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and
11 carries, so about 8-point-something yards per carry.
He toting it. So,
but then if you look at the passing, 19 for 24, 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. No interceptions, but
hey, look, it's a good day if you get a turnover-free day from Daniel Jones. So that might say a little bit more about where the Colts are than where it says about Daniel Jones. But
that's going to be interesting for the quarterback for the Colts, dear Lord.
Yeah, at this point, I don't know what they do, but
Trade, draft.
But they are a Derek Carr team
Maybe
to
sell
me.
the team. I don't know.
Well, I don't think Irsay's coming off that
also,
team anytime
too,
soon.
when we mentioned the Vikings, it got a little bit more worse. Their starting right tackle has been put on IR for a calf injury.
Ooh, yeah, we don't like that because I don't know Christian Darrisaw, he's back, but I think they also lost their center during the game on Sunday. So a lot of frontline issues for the Vikings. But Giants are back in the playoffs. They're pretty much locked into the 6th seed. Well, not even pretty much. They are locked into the 6th seed as things stand right now. I mentioned, Mike Tomlin needs some looks for Coach of the Year. I think Brian Daboll is probably going to win it. Yeah. I would believe it has to be him over the Eagles coach, only because
the Eagles has been kind of down a little.
Well, yeah, the meter's kind of trending down for them. And again, given pound for pound job that you had to do, Brian Daboll being able to turn this Giants team into like a legitimate playoff team in 1 year is quite the coaching job. If I'm giving my honest
opinion. Please let this not be one of those one peak year for rookie head coaches. I'm getting, because it's not just in college, but not pros, but some colleges coaches do that sometimes. And it's like, ugh.
Yeah, I think Daboll, he seems like a competent enough coach where this is not just like a flash in the pan type of thing. But we'll definitely see. And Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley looks like they've turned their good seasons into potential contract extensions at the end of the year. So lots to be happy about if you're a Giants fan.
I don't know what your next game, but I'm looking at this. I want to talk about this real question because the Browns eliminated the Commanders from playoff contention, and I'm looking at the lines here. Fans booed Carson Wentz and chanted for Heineke to come back in.
Well, and so here's the problem, right, for the Commanders. Heineke shouldn't have gotten taken. Wentz shouldn't have been starting in the first place.
Yeah, a lot of people are very, very mad at Riverboat Ron right now.
Well, so I've got a little bit of a conspiracy theory about Ron. I think he's trying to get himself fired.
I'm laughing because it's funny because it could be true.
I mean, think about it, right? You literally turned your entire season around off the strength of going from Carson Wentz to Taylor Heineke. You made the switch back to Wentz because you needed to win the last couple games to make the playoffs, and Taylor Heineke was actually the one winning you games. Wentz comes in, what happens? He immediately comes in and throws 3 interceptions. We saw this movie last year with the Colts. The man went out there in Jacksonville. They literally just had to win the game, and they were in the playoffs, and he had one of the worst games of his life in a clutch moment. And this is the guy you want to trust to lead you to the playoffs? You went from being locked into the 7th seed to being eliminated from playoff contention because you chose Carson Wentz over Taylor Heineke. That sounds like a man that wants to go home.
And also here, losing to the Browns with Deshaun Watson with 50% completion, 169 yards and 3 touchdowns, and
I mean, and this is a Browns offense that was not good.
You get rushed over 104 yards by Nick Chubb, and then only with 3 receptions, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns by Amari Cooper.
Yeah, and I think
it's all Browns.
Yeah. Look,
for the top performances here for this game.
Look,
come
man,
on now.
I think Ryan's trying to get out of there. I think because he also is a smart man, can probably see the writing on the wall. As soon as that team changes ownership, they're probably going to want to bring in their own coach.
Well, we see how that worked out with the Browns' new ownership. How that,
I mean, not ideal for them.
Yeah,
so,
and another one, just a quick one. The Jets, White Mike, what the?
My man, White Mike couldn't get it done, but I think White Mike was out there still playing hurt. Jets, they only could muster 6 points. They go to Seattle, lose 23-6. Seattle stays alive. They end their 3-game losing streak. Jets, on the other hand, now eliminated from playoff contention. It was a fun ride for the Jets this year, man. Yeah. I'll give them that credit, though, because I did not expect them to be this close to making the playoffs.
And let's not forget, if they actually had that left tackle that didn't have that shattered kneecap or anything,
Mekhi Becton,
and a few other players, this should be one of the rising teams that should win, in my opinion, AFC East next season.
So, I think they still are a quarterback away, even with White Mike.
Oh, man.
even with White. Because, look, Mike White is fun to root for him. He's not Zach Wilson, so he's not completely trash.
That's going to be interesting. Whatever happens to Zach Wilson, that's going to be interesting.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the rookie contract situation is for him as far as like how much dead money they have to eat if they just outright release him. But he's not playing for them again. He's not playing for them again.
Agents try to convince the coach to trade for him.
Right. Hey, look, the Colts might take him off y'all hands, man. I could see them being a Derek Carr team. If this were a month ago, we probably would have been talking about Aaron Rodgers. Mike Mitchell was on this show a few weeks back and proposed the idea that Lamar Jackson might leave the Baltimore Ravens for the New York Jets, which obviously there's still a lot of steps that have to happen before that is even possible. But I think they have to get a quarterback that there are no questions about in terms of can that person raise your ceiling. Because right now they got all the talent outside of quarterback. Yeah. You got Sauce Gardner on defense, Quentin Williams. What's my other man on the D-line name? Lawson. You've got Garrett Wilson on offense. You'll get Breece Hall back. Zonovan Knight has proven himself to be a usable running back. So they've got pieces. They've got some talent there on both sides of the ball. I think getting that quarterback position locked down with somebody that you can really trust is going to be the key for them. Because until that happens, I can't confidently say that they could go and take that division from the Bills if I know that Josh Allen is undoubtedly the best quarterback in that division.
Let's stick with the AFC. It's just one more game here. The Patriots and Dolphins game.
Yeah, so they were actually one of my next up games because the Dolphins also now in a little bit of a downhill slide.
And just want to say a report came out. Tua's not even part of discussion for Week 18.
No. So we mentioned last week, Tua ended up leaving that Green Bay Packers game, or I guess not even leaving the game, but part of the reason why he played so terrible down the stretch of that game was because he was concussed. Not ideal situation for him.
They need to give him at least one brain scan per month until season just to see how he is.
Well, and at this point, again, we kind of mentioned at the beginning of the show with DeMar Hamlin situation and how serious that is. 3 concussions in a calendar year is crazy.
Yeah.
Not to mention 3 concussions in essentially 10 weeks of a football season. That's not good, man. That's not good at all. Yeah. So,
until they give sufficient, the padding inside the helmets have gotten better since we played, but still, they need to figure out something either that or just making sure to teach quarterbacks whenever they get hit, or they just let it be nature's reaction of get where the head not to hit the ground, which that might be impossible to be.
Well, and to be honest, I don't really think there's a good way to you can't concussion-proof football.
No.
At least the way that it's played. You would have to drastically change how the game is played before you eliminate concussions altogether.
Other sports too, hockey, rugby, you could in a way, but
yeah, even that's still a little bit sketchy. So definitely hate that for Tua. Teddy Bridgewater started this game for the Dolphins. They ended up losing 23-21 against the Patriots. He also got hurt in this game. Now, his injury obviously a lot more minor. He broke his finger, but believe that finger is on his throwing hand. So they were down to third-string quarterback Skylar Thompson, and as you can imagine, that was not the outcome that they needed for their playoff hopes once he got in. So
and the Dolphins are still alive.
Dolphins are still alive, which we'll kind of break down some of these scenarios here a little bit later in the show. But the Patriots now have control over that 7th seed in the AFC, which again, a couple weeks ago I thought that was out the window for them, and now they're in the driver's seat yet again, just doing Patriots things.
Let me talk about one thing that was kind of a scary, it gave me a type thing. That's the Chiefs and Broncos game, and the Chiefs only beat the Broncos by 3 points.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit of a we're bored. This is a little bit of a let off the gas type of moment for the Chiefs, which that game didn't mean much to them because they were still going to have to wait on the results of this Bills-Bengals game before they knew kind of what was going on with their seeding. they do get the win. They do now have the inside track, at least until we figure out what's going to happen record-wise with the Bills. They do have the inside track now to the number 1 seed in the AFC.
So. Yeah, and it's not that. It really wasn't that great, even though Mahomes got 328 yards, 3 touchdowns. Rushing, Latavius Murray, 56 yards, was the best rushing performance, and wide receiving only 70 yards by Tony, not even Kelsey.
Well, and I think for Kadarius Toney, like out of those 70 yards, I want to say like 38 or 39 of them came on one play. So I don't know. The Chiefs
somehow the Broncos defense suddenly woke up after Hackett left. That's kind of weird to me.
And that's the thing, right? So usually you see with a lot of these teams, we saw it with the Colts when they brought in Jeff Saturday and fired Frank Reich. We saw it a little bit when the Panthers fired Matt Rule and brought in Steve Wilkes. Usually you get a little bit of a bump up in how the team responds once the coach is fired. And for this Broncos team that's already having a pretty rough season, a lot more meaningful game for them than it was for the Chiefs, who they know they're going to the playoffs regardless. Yeah. So Broncos, it continues to get worse, man. We'll see what they do as far as coaches go.
What they do with Russell Wilson, that's
now see that's the thing, man. I think they stuck. Because, I mean, if you were...
They're stuck in cap hell.
Stuck in cap hell, and even if you had another team that was willing to take on that contract, like, what is a reasonable return for Russell Wilson right now?
I don't think it's even a first round. It would probably must be second
or
third.
Did they gave up multiple first-round picks to get him?
Yeah.
And now you probably would, you might get a second or third for Russell Wilson? So
maybe throw a 7th one just for insurance purposes.
I don't really know, what would be reasonable to expect in return for him. So it might make trading him a whole lot harder than what it probably seems on the surface right now.
There was one story I found interesting is that Saints still hold the coaching rights for Sean Payton.
Yeah.
So
now that is a coaching candidate that they may look at. Now I don't think Sean Payton would want that job. I think the ideal.
Find out what jobs are available because Black Monday
is fast approaching. Yeah, fast approaching, baby. So not only will we have Black Monday to discuss next week, we will also have a college football national champion to discuss. Next week, coming off of that Monday. So
also see what the results from because that's the first week of XFL training camp because that starts this weekend.
Hey, lot going on here on the football calendar.
Yeah.
So those of y'all just joining us, this is That's Football here, brought to you by the In the Zone Network at the My City My Music Studios. I think for the next game that I want to talk, because now it all kind of ties in with this whole NFC East change up that we have going on. Eagles lost at home on Sunday versus the Saints, 20-10. Not a very eventful game, but a game that now opens up a lot of different possibilities in the NFC, and of course, again, possibilities we'll cover a little bit more.
Kamara's still playing right now.
Well, I think if you're Alvin Kamara, you're finishing out this season because you don't know when next season is going to start for you, given the criminal case he has pending right now. So
Vishnu, though, I will say he did pretty good, and it's just weird.
Yeah, it's all
the Eagles. They because remember they got Sue now, they got Robert Quinn now in that defense, and you lose by 10 by they're injured because
the Saints are just injured all throughout. Chris Olave came back this week, but I mean they still were, bringing in practice squad receivers.
Honestly, if the Eagles do win the division, the wild card team, whatever they face, might have a good chance of beating them. To be quite honest.
Well, and so of course, we can't lose sight of the fact that they played that game without Jalen Hurts, which apparently he's going to try to play in Week 18. This sounds like they are moving fast out of a sense of desperation that they don't really need to operate with.
Because they might not still have the division title because it's going to be between them and Dallas.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that for next week, though.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that preview. But now NFC East and the number 1 seed in the NFC are up for grabs. Now, out of the teams that are at 12-4, the 49ers and the Vikings, the 49ers are the only team that can actually take that 1 seed because of the fact that the Eagles beat the Vikings earlier this year. So some tiebreaker stuff that we can kind of talk through.
And we'll do this quickly here because It's just amazing that the Jaguars could win the AFC South. Whatever team plays for the AFC South, it's just like
it's nuts to think that the Jaguars are leading that division. The Cowboys and Titans played on Thursday Night Football. I'll kind of run through this really quickly. Josh Dobbs greater than Malik Willis.
yes.
So hard stop.
Not even close.
Not even close.
And the thing is, though, Titans are injured a lot because they don't have King Henry. They don't have this.
Well, so I think they intentionally sat a lot of those guys knowing that regardless of what happened on Thursday, they were going to have to beat the Jaguars to get into the playoffs anyway. Titans, though, man, like, if you got to start Josh Dobbs in a division title game, essentially, it sounds like y'all might need to just pack it up and go home, man.
Yeah.
And I know, that's not how football players are wired. It's not how most athletes are wired. But this season is going nowhere. Like, you get into the playoffs as the 4 seed, you're probably going to lose to the Chargers. Or if you were to happen somehow, if you were able to get in as a 7 seed, you're probably going to lose to whoever is the 2 seed.
Yeah.
So
the battle for L.A.
Well, yeah, and that didn't turn out to be much of a battle at all.
That wasn't even close.
Yeah, Chargers beat the Rams 31-10. The Chargers are now locked into the 5. Well, sorry, they're not locked into the 5 seed. They are going to play their starters next week because they can lock up that 5 seed over whoever happens to lose the AFC North between the Bengals and Ravens. So,
yeah,
interesting to see how that one plays out.
And also, one more thing. Congratulations, Los Angeles Rams. You are now the most losses ever for a defending Super Bowl champion at 11.
Took that record right from the 99 Broncos. Man.
Now,
congratulations.
The question is, will it go to 12?
Well, I mean, it's a game that doesn't mean anything for them next week, but I know, for this Rams
not for
team.
them, but their opponent, yes.
Yeah, for this Rams team and Sean McVay specifically, I know he would love to keep the Seahawks from being able to make the playoffs. So wouldn't shock me if they got up for that game.
Yeah.
So we mentioned, Eagles taking the loss. Cowboys, of course, won on Thursday Night Football, which now sets up a pretty interesting scenario next week where the Cowboys could potentially win the NFC East after everything that's gone on for them this season. So
Ashley's going to be happy.
Of course. So a couple games that we did not mention specifically, mainly because they didn't have much playoff implication. Lions with a blowout win over the Bears, 41-10. Detroit now 7.
That was expected.
Yeah. Detroit now 7-2 in their last 9 games. They, again, as we mentioned earlier, they have a shot at making the playoffs, but it's a little bit more complicated than what it may seem like on the surface. Also, Justin Fields, I believe, is now 74 yards away from breaking the quarterback rushing record for a single season. So something to keep an eye on for him in Week 18.
That brings an interesting question because, as we discussed, Houston's or the Bears are like 1-2 right now.
Yeah.
I don't think they draft a quarterback.
No, so if I am the Bears, because, I think right now the way the records work, they would be at worst the number 2 or 3 pick. Pretty sure it would be 2. But there's, like I said, an outside shot that if the Texans were to beat the Colts next week and they lose against the Vikings, Bears would then have the number 1 pick. I could see them trading that pick.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be similar to the RG3 trade.
Because if you know that Justin Fields is your quarterback of the future, you have a lot of holes to fill around him. Trade back however many picks you want to trade back. Take the other draft capital that you're going to receive from another team. Excuse me, and fill those holes that way. So I think that could end up being a good strategy for them. Now, you could also make the case that whether it's pick 1 or pick 2, they could also just take Will Anderson from Alabama. So we'll see what the strategy looks like for them. But I think they will have some options for themselves, given the season that they've had, but also given the emergence and the rise of Justin Fields in that offense. So
because definitely Houston's going to choose a quarterback if they got to know.
Yeah, if regardless of what pick they have, if it's not Bryce Young, they definitely would take C.J. Stroud.
Yeah,
I believe.
though. We'll see if Lovie Smith is part of Black Monday. I hope not.
And you know what? I would hope not. They fired David Culley after 1 year, which we knew that was a bridge hire when they made it. Lovie, we know he's not going to be the coach forever for them. we'll see what input he has on who that draft pick happens to be or what plays out with that.
And we'll see what college coach wins the national championship and see who gets some NFL calls.
Well, I think at this point, and we'll segue to college here in just a second. I think the only other result that wasn't mentioned from NFL, Falcons beat the Cardinals 20-19 again.
Battle of the Birds, that was one of the most meaningless
Yeah,
games.
it was a tank bowl for last week. Had no playoff implications at all. So, transition into college football here real quick. Coming off crazy set of college football playoff games on Saturday. You mentioned one of these two coaches. Georgia, TCU, we have them set for the college football playoff national championship next week. I think if you're Kirby Smart and you're at Georgia, I'm not leaving Georgia to go be on a short leash in the NFL. I got it made right now in college. Not only do I have the best team in college football, it's not going to get any worse anytime soon.
Plus, also, I think college coaches get a lot more money than NFL coaches.
Well, a lot more money and a lot more control. That's really, it's the power that comes with the money.
And maybe some under-the-table stuff.
Yeah. So before we get too deep into the national championship discussion, we'll talk about the semifinal games.
Okay. TCU versus Michigan. The first one on New Year's Eve.
It turned out to be a doozy.
I watched that, and dear Lord, and last week's show, I said TCU would probably be playing angry.
Yep.
After losing to K-State for the Big 12 championship. And boy, was I correct. Because TCU's defense showed up first with that interception for return for a touchdown. Right out of the gate.
And did I remember? I don't think I picked TCU to win outright, but I did think that this was going to be the closer of the two games, which I actually ended up being wrong about that. But my gut about this game was telling me that TCU, to your point, not only were they going to come out angry about losing to Kansas State in that Big 12 championship game, I think they just had a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder compared to Michigan, even though, Michigan lost in the college football playoff last year as well. They came out guns blazing, though. And you could tell very early on that it was probably going to be a game that TCU would win. Now, obviously, Michigan, they made it close. They came back. And had a chance to win it all the way, down to the last second, essentially, before, turnovers basically took them out of it. But that's a hell of a win for TCU. Sonny Dykes, long career as a college coach. This is now his first year at TCU and has them playing for a national championship. So you talk about, rookie head coaches being able to kind of outkick their coverage a little bit, Will. This is definitely one of those situations, and TCU, hell of a game plan, played, lights out. And now, getting the national championship game experience next week, we'll see how much of a fight or, struggle they can give Georgia. But I think Georgia did also get their scare out of the way in that Ohio State game.
One thing I will mention, because it was kind of confusing, because I know Michigan fans were, if you remember that one touchdown, the Michigan wide receiver had it.
Yeah.
He didn't leave out, but he landed on his butt,
Yep.
and the ball bounced out, but it was still in. But he still had it, didn't touch the ground. Yet that was incomplete.
What is a catch? I don't know.
Is this because of the college rule here, or is that?
Yeah, I think it's, and that's another thing too. Feel how you want about how different college football is compared to the NFL. Can we just make one catch in one level the same as a catch at the next level? That's all I want. Just give us some consistency with the catch calls.
What is a catch is getting close to how many licks can it get to a center of the Tootsie Roll pop?
Yeah, we don't know. We never know.
Yeah.
We're just taking our best guess every time, man. So TCU, hell of a win. Now playing for the national championship. Georgia and Ohio State, though.
Strangely, both these games didn't really have much defense until
until very late in the game, right? So Ohio State gets out to a big lead, and let me say this too: C.J. Stroud. If there were any doubters as far as his ability as a quarterback, what he could potentially do in NFL, all that, he completely silenced them with how he started the game. Even if you don't want to give him the credit for how the game finished, threw 4 touchdowns in that game against Georgia, 348 yards. Not too many quarterbacks that looked that good against that Georgia defense, and he was able to sling it.
Yeah.
So Big game from him. Georgia's down 38-24 entering the fourth quarter. And I don't know if you saw this on social media or not, but they come back, obviously take the lead to go up 42-41. Ohio State gets the ball back. They get an opportunity at a game-winning field goal. That just so happens, for the folks that were there on the East Coast, because, again, the game is in Atlanta, right? They are lining up to kick that game-winning field goal literally at 11:59. The clock strikes midnight as the field goal is called no good. Hell of a way to go into the new year if you are a Georgia fan, because the Mercedes-Benz Superdome down there in Atlanta was rocking.
I will say Marvin Harrison Jr. played very well.
Oh, yes. I forgot to write him down in my notes because, of course, he left that game with an injury, caught 2 touchdowns very early in that game. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be like a top 5 pick whenever he's able to come out of draft, which I think is next year.
Both by pedigree from his father, and just by play. Because
Jesus, I had only gotten a chance to see him play a few games this year, and he played well. It wasn't anything where I was just completely jaw dropped, but I knew he was a really good wide receiver. What he was doing Saturday, he's an NFL wide receiver today. If he was able to do the one and done or leave whenever you want to college basketball, he'd be in the league already.
I know if his father's still part of the Colts coaching squad, if he's able to try to get him for the Colts, he's going to try.
They need him. They could definitely use the talent, man. So we now have Georgia and TCU set up for next Monday.
I will say it's quite interesting that both teams that won, they technically played in their had home field.
Essentially, yeah. So TCU got to play in Jerry World.
In Texas.
In Texas.
Because people forget TCU means Texas Christian University.
Of course. So for those of y'all who don't know where TCU is, now you know. And then, of course, Georgia got to play in Atlanta. So they'll now go to SoFi Stadium out in Los Angeles.
2 straight weeks, let me be clear. 2 straight games.
Right.
Because the SEC championship is always in Atlanta.
Yeah, always. And so Georgia now goes, Georgia and TCU now go to SoFi Stadium to play for a national championship next week. I said before these playoff games, I'm not picking against Georgia. That statement still stands. Mm-hmm. Because, again, I feel like they got their scare out of the way. Usually when you have teams that have been this dominant throughout a season or even over the course of a couple seasons, they get into these types of moments, whether it be playoffs or championship games. There's usually one of those fork in the road moments where it's they could have lost, but, championship pedigree persevered. I definitely think what they went through against Ohio State is one of those situations. And unfortunately, I think TCU is going to have to be on the receiving end of a pretty rough one come Monday night.
We'll see. It is interesting that the TCU and Georgia did save us from an all Big Ten national championship.
Yes, thank you.
All Big Ten.
Yeah. We did not need another Ohio State and Michigan game. Just put that out there.
I do give Georgia the advantage, but to me, because TCU's they're the underdog.
Yep.
I think if they play mad as they did against Michigan, I think it will be a lot more close. But TCU could surprise Georgia. I'll just say if they're able to do the defense they did against Georgia, put pressure on Georgia's quarterback.
Yep. Though
I will say Big 12 D lineman versus SEC offensive lineman.
Yeah, it might not.
Speed versus power.
It might be a little bit of a tough uphill battle, but I will say this for betting friends out there. I think as of last check, Georgia's a 12.5 point favorite.
Let me double check that.
I wouldn't mind taking TCU to cover. I could see Georgia win that game by 10 points instead of 20, with it being a national championship game. But again, this is also Georgia. We're talking about, what might start as a 3-point game could very well turn into a 20-point game very, very fast. So, I weirdly enough also think it was a game that Stetson Bennett needed for, his confidence going into what is going to be yet another crazy championship situation come next week.
Yeah, and of course, strangely, after the semifinals, we have more bowl games.
Crazies.
I'll just say with locally, Illinois, they had their game against Mississippi State, lost 19-10. Billman did good. He got that 8-year extension, and Illinois looks favorable for the next few years in the Big Ten. Of course, the Alabama K-State game, Alabama had a K-State pretty handily, though. It'll be interesting how Kurt Warner's son, the wide receiver, does if he gets selected in the NFL draft. I think there's a chance, or be signed as an undrafted free agent. Don't you
think? I think he's probably going to find himself on the NFL roster in some fashion.
He's definitely one of those good blocking wide receivers. But he's also a big target, though. It'll be interesting to see his other son, the quarterback out of Temple, see how he does, because he did very good for his freshman year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then, of course, you got. Talk about USC was so good, Heisman winner, and then Lou get upset by 1 point by Tulane. Yeah. Congratulations, John Christian Young, teammate and classmate of mine at Central Methodist University, part of the coaching staff from Tulane. Congratulations.
Hey, congratulations, man.
Interesting, too. The budget for Tulane football, about $5.5 million. I think for USC, I can't remember. It's somewhere between 30 to 50 million.
Yeah, so big discrepancy in the budget there, but Tulane definitely able to pull off that upset. I believe scored 14 points in 4 minutes yesterday?
Something like that, though. It's like, of course, Williams had a day, though, 37-52, 462 yards and 5 touches that still couldn't win.
Yeah, Caleb Williams put on the show, definitely showed off why he was a Heisman Trophy winner.
I think the Tulane running back got some NFL people, like telling him come out, 17 carries, 205 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he'll be on somebody's practice team at worst, and probably I don't know if he's declared for the draft.
Does have a good history of running backs, though, to be quite frank. Then let's see here. LSU, boy, they beat the crap out of
63-7 against Purdue.
Penn State beat Utah. I'm actually not quite surprised by that.
Yeah.
Then here we go. TCU, Georgia, betting line. I think they got a little bit too high, in my opinion. Being played at SoFi. Sorry, Stan, don't have any playoff games being played. Only get sick of the NCAA. Then, of course, you got the Olympics in 4 years. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 4 years. Yeah, I think so.
Is it? No, 6. 2028, I think, is the Olympics the U.S. has.
Yeah.
I know it's not 24, so.
No, but everything's off because they delayed the Summer Olympics by 1 year because of the pandemic. So I think it's in Europe, then it's in USA for the Olympics. I think it's 2028. Yeah, So as of right now, they have Georgia winning by 12.5 points, over under point 62.5. And I'm actually quite surprised it's this low. I think that would have been higher. The lowest ticket right now is $404.
Ooh, yeah. I would have thought that the lowest ticket would have been probably somewhere in the $700 to $800 range. But to be fair, I think that probably would have been the price if it were Georgia and Michigan. It's probably a little bit of a discount that you're getting with that being TCU in the Big 12 instead of a SEC versus Big 10 matchup.
You got no Big 12 teams. And I can't remember when was the last time the college play have had the odd seeds facing each other for the national championship?
Not sure. I do know. I had a nice little note written down for TCU. This is the chance for them to win their first national championship since 1938. So nice 85-year gap between.
I'm trying to figure out how it worked, the national championship worked back then.
And so that's what I was gonna say.
Was that during the? No, that wasn't during.
That was like pre-Bear Bryant, right?
Yeah, that was before That was before Brown at Syracuse. That was.
Yeah, that was. I mean, Stone Ages of college football.
The Express and how that bowl, how that apparently how the national championship happened.
Yeah. Because and you probably can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was a point so far back in the day where, like, literally whoever the two top-ranked teams were, they just played for the national championship, and that was that.
I remember the coach saying that they had 2 options, and I know it was against a Texas team, and with all the whole Texas with football being a religion, still is to this day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Especially, look at those dang high school football stadiums, man.
Yeah, going crazy, man. So before we transition from college football to alternative football here, big quick note, we did mention Bryce Young, Will Anderson, both Alabama stars. Bryce Young, Alabama's quarterback, Will Anderson, pass rusher. Both are now declaring for the NFL draft officially. Bryce Young's projected right now, as long as the Texans hold on, to be that team picking number one, likely going to be the number one overall pick. And Will Anderson, widely regarded as the top overall prospect in the draft, probably going to be top 3 pick at worst. Just we'll probably have to see how some of that quarterback stuff shakes out. But both of those players declaring for the draft for Alabama, and then, of course, C.J. Stroud, quarterback for Ohio State, officially declared for the draft himself as well.
And I'll give some good news to Mizzou fans. Trajan Jeffcoat, defensive end, is decided to return.
There we go.
So, especially because we all both know the best thing for Mizzou is actually their defense over their offense.
Yeah, the defense played well this year.
And, yeah, the offense, like, they got some offense out with that recruiting class. Interesting what they do with quarterback. Will Cook be the starter, or will it be somebody else?
We'll see.
There's
some ugly film for Cook this year, but there's also some games where he kind of played above his level a little bit. So
yeah, and it's just going to be very interesting because remember, it's about a year or two before the expansion for the playoffs, correct?
Yeah, so I believe next year is the final year of the 4-team playoff. We will then transition to a 12-team playoff in 2025.
So 1, 2, 3. So the Power 5, or is it all conference champions, if I remember?
Well, so I think Power 5 conference champions will all get an automatic bid, kind of similar to the way that conference champions in the NCAA men's basketball tournament get automatic bids, and then they'll have what they call the at-large teams, which I'm assuming is going to be 5 conference champs, 7 at-large teams. I don't think they would add a 6th conference. You know, you're probably going to get SEC, Big 12, Big 10, ACC, and Pac-12. I don't know that they would add.
Out of the other conferences, the only one I could probably see, because wouldn't the top one either be the MAC or the Sun Belt, right? I can't believe I'm saying this.
Well, I guess technically it I don't even know how many Big East teams they still have. I was going to say
the
American, yeah. That might be the 6th, but
Conference USA's gone downhill.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think they would much rather, if you're the college football playoff committee, you probably would rather have more of those at-large spots open for being able to make the exceptions on those teams as opposed to guaranteeing it.
But the Mountain West, they're going to get poached.
Yeah, definitely going to get poached. And so I like the idea of the 12-team demo. We'll kind of see how that works, because if I remember correctly, you'll have the top 4 ranked teams all get a bye, and then the remaining 8 teams will play each other one round, and then you kind of whittle it down that way. So interesting to see what type of arguments you start to hear for teams to get in. You know, it's been crazy trying to get it down to 4 teams. I can only imagine how nuts it's going to be trying to get it to just 12.
And what if any other bowl games either go disappear, or because it's like, what's the point of those now?
Well, so they have to technically keep the bowl games money wise, and the bowl games aren't going away because, one, the schools get paid from those, and advertisers want their names on bowl games. And the only reason this expanded playoff is possible is because now the Rose Bowl is on board with having their game as part of the college football playoff. But keep in mind, they are not going to move the game. I think Rose Bowl is going to forever be played on New Year's Day, so we'll see how that incorporates in the schedule.
It'd be interesting how they do the Rose Bowl parade, because that's a spectacle in itself.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Masters in golf. Like they're going to do this thing regardless of who shows up. So.
And we're now a little bit past to the halfway part here, Josh. So.
Yeah, so we'll transition into XFL and USFL, but first want to give a shout out to sponsor World Bird Sanctuary. Of course, we got to have Carter Hawk here in studio a couple weeks back. We are now starting the Let Him Fly campaign for Call. As we, kind of mentioned a couple different times here throughout the show, XFL season is fastly approaching. Let Him Fly, we would like Call the Hawk, the official mascot of the St. Louis Battlehawks, to be able to fly at home games, as well as some of his fellow Kettle members. If you didn't know, Harris's Hawks are part of a Kettle, as the grouping, how they are referred to. So not only will you see Call the Hawk at some of those games, but we're hoping Mohawk and a couple other members of that Hawk Kettle for Call will actually be part of the flying before the game as well. But till then, when you see That's Football on Twitter, Facebook, wherever, make sure you tag us with that hashtag Let Him Fly. We are trying to get that campaign going in full spirit here so that we can get Call the Hawk live and in action flying through the dome for some of those Battlehawks games. Because as we know, not only would that be a really big spectacle for the fans, but I'm pretty sure that's going to fire up, a lot of Battlehawks home games here. So, shout out to the World Bird Sanctuary. Again, if you have not, if you did not get a chance to catch the segment when Roger and Taryn were here along with Call the Hawk, you can check them out, worldbirdsanctuary.com, as well as can go there to donate. So, XFL.
Yes, so we had a supplemental draft, but first we actually got a new coaching hire for the St. Louis Battlehawks.
There we go.
Torrey Woodbury, former NFL player. He is now the new special teams and tight end coach for our Battlehawks. Former QB/wide receiver, played for the Jets. Also played for the Saints, the New Orleans Voodoo, so state of New Orleans in the original AFL.
There we go.
And then also back to the Bills. Has a pretty good coaching resume, especially when it comes to HBCUs. So that continues the whole relationship with the XFL and the HBCUs that we see keep going, especially with that one camp that they had that earlier this year. He, coached for Delaware State from 2011 to 2014. Was for the offensive coordinator for Johnson College, Johnson C. Smith University, 15 and 17. Then he became the LA Rams college scout after they left St. Louis. The first year, after not 16, but 17 through 19. But then he also became the assistant special teams coach for the LA Rams from 17 to 19. Mm-hmm. Then he became the tight ends and specialty coach, same position for Morgan State last year, and now he's part of the St. Louis Battlehawks.
There we go.
So he's excited here. Let me get he had a picture. There we are, right there. Got all that stuff there. It's going to be interesting here. Now,
I like that hoodie though. I don't know. Obviously, that's not the.
No, because there's an NFL someone did
Photoshop
that. It's similar to the trucker. I do see this as a future hat design, actually. So, Torrey Woodbury, welcome to the Battlehawks.
Welcome to St. Louis.
Yeah, and be ready for that. Now, January 1st, we had the supplemental draft, and there was a few things that happened. First, let me get to the right page here. All right, there we are. Get up there. All right. First, there was a news release. First things first, before the supplemental draft started, they actually assigned another quarterback, and I talked about this, and he's going to be really good. Brian Scott played all sorts of stuff, CFL, the USFL with the Philadelphia Stars. Now he's part of the Vegas Vipers, or as we come to know it, Nature Spaghetti.
Yeah. We got to get that on some shirts, man.
Yeah, we do. So there was 17 rounds. This is a total of 90 players were selected. And, of course, like we said last week, the Battlehawks had the first pick. And these were players that were who were previously eligible to draft because some of them were still under contract by the USFL. So those spring football wars, they're alive and well. They are alive and well, and it's very good to see. And one thing, too, to note here. Josh, could you do me a favor and read this highlighted thing here?
Yes, NFL Alumni Academy graduates who were not selected will be assigned to teams and instructed to report to training camp with their teammates.
Now, if you remember when we had Mike Mitchell on, that there was a little thing going on with the NFL Alumni Academy and the XFL. Seems like they might not have enough spots for their I guess we'll call them graduate players and stuff. Now it seems like they're going to be aside and try to get spots during training camp now. So now it looks like they kind of worked out that disagreement that they had, which is good. So it'll be kind of interesting how they battle it out, if you will, because what happens is we'll see, because whenever I said training camp start next week, they start checking in this weekend, going to Arlington.
Yep.
Though we still need a schedule. One thing, though, I did see there's a chance that the schedule, let me be clear, rumor. I don't want to be saying, like, don't, like, quote me or this. Like,
right.
It could happen tomorrow or Thursday. It needs to happen soon because, look, some people want to know the schedule so they can plan because this is the time to, like, they want to. And also, this is hurting their single game ticket sales because we're about a month and a half from the season coming. And just a reminder, the games will be broadcasted on ESPN, ESPN2, ABC, and FX, and also ESPN Plus, which is the newest part. So that's good for anywhere because I'm not too sure how many bars will have FX, to be quite honest.
Well, yeah, and I would also hope with the XFL they're probably not putting too many of their prime games on FX. But
I'm assuming the prime games, those are going to be ESPN and ABC.
Yeah, so
and
FX, though, probably not in many bars, but again, ESPN Plus will definitely work on your mobile device.
Strange, though, with history of FX, because it has many names, it actually did broadcast the original USFL games back in the 80s, so that's actually quite interesting. So, like I said, we got the Sailors, we got the First, Brahmas, and the Renegades, the Sea Dragons, Vipers, Guardians, Defenders, Roughnecks, then it goes in reverse order from then on then. So, give me a moment here. I got to get that out of there, and I'm going to get out, because they actually made this into a nice kind of Google Doc here. For right here, I'm just showing how it looks here. Let me get, of course, they got to get cute right there. All right, so we're going to go with just strictly Battlehawks here, then we'll go with some other names here. One thing that's kind of interesting, the first kind of 2.5 to 3 rounds players that played for the USFL.
Okay.
And the first one, it's a technicality, but it is technically a technicality. Welcome back, Juan Bushell Beatty. He was actually drafted with the 2020 Battlehawks, but he was traded during training camp to the Houston Roughnecks. That's how we got the local kid, Brett Wallace, who unfortunately we lost last year. Yeah. So, yeah. So, I remember him, 6'6", 315. You know what type of lineman is from the school he was from, Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Corn-fed, baby.
Undrafted 2019, was signed with the Commanders, then he was with the Cowboys. Like I said, original Battlehawks draft pick during the O-line session. Then he was traded to the Roughnecks. Then he went to the Panther Scouts after they shut down during the pandemic. Then he went to Canada, played for the Ottawa Red Blacks. Then recently, this is interesting too. Interesting that he also played the USFL and started for the Tampa Bay Bandits, which are now the Memphis Showboats. We're going to mention some USFL stuff here pretty soon. And now he's back to the Battlehawks, and I expect him to be a starter.
For sure.
So, number 2, strangely too, also from the Tampa Bay Bandits, linebacker Travis Feeney, 6'4", 240, 2016 NFL Draft, round 6, pick 220. Was with the Steelers, then was on the active roster for the Saints. Then this is also a recognizable thing because he also played for the San Diego Fleet, and that's where, of course, Anthony Beck was the tight ends coach when Mike marched for the AAF. Rest in peace, AAF. Sorry what happened to you. It's not you or the player's fault, just your dumb ownership. Yeah, so then he also went to play for the Canada Montreal Alouettes, the Toronto Argos, then Bandits. So Bushwell Beatty knows them probably faced each other in camp and also for practice. Now he's with the Battlehawks. And here comes a player, because I have a feeling they're going to play a 3-4, and I played in a 3-4, and I want to root for a team that does a 3-4 defense. Defensive line, he mostly plays DN. Freedom Akon Malundoon.
Great name.
I think similar to Ndamukong Suh, how that name came to be. 6'3", 286. Also, strangely, Nebraska.
It's eerie, man. Eerie.
2019 NFL Draft, undrafted, was with the Giants, the Bengals, active roster, Titans practice squad, active with the Jets, was with the Philadelphia Stars. They got second in the USFL championship, and now he's with the Battlehawks. So you see the trend here, as I say in here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Then, of course, safety. This is going to be interesting here in a little bit. Cornerback Nate Mendors, 5'11", 194. UCLA, 2019 NFL draft, undrafted, was signed to the Vikings, was part of their active roster. Also with the Jaguars, practice squad for the Eagles, Browns, Giants, and now with the Battlehawks. So, yeah, right there. And then here's one that's kind of interesting because the first pick we got that 6'4", 6'5" receiver from Oklahoma State. Number 5, wide receiver Hakeem Butler. That name should sound familiar. Iowa State, NFL draft 2019, was second Big 12. Round 4, pick 103, was with the Cardinals, but his end there because he actually broke his hand.
Oh,
was released. He was on the Panthers practice squad, active roster for the Eagles, was on the practice squad for the BC Lions, Edmonton Elks. Now it's with the Battlehawks. One thing I did read, there's a chance because of how big he is. Like I said, 6'5", 227. He actually either going to be a big wide receiver or be that slot tight end hybrid, which is becoming more popular now.
Right.
So, especially with Anthony Beck being a former tight end himself, and especially who they just hired.
Yeah, they'll get creative with it.
Yeah. Defensive line, my favorite. No, 6th pick, defensive line, Shatan Soto, 6'3", 290, Pittsburgh. NFL draft 2017, undrafted, was with the Broncos, Raiders practice squad, San Diego Fleet. See the trend here?
Oh, yeah.
Cowboys, then the Seahawks, BC Lions, and was with the New Orleans Breakers for the USFL last year. So, like I said, getting those USFL players that decide.
Snatching them up, man.
Yeah.
Snatching them up.
And Breakers are actually a pretty good team. They made it into the semifinals. Number 7, safety Chris Cooper, 5'10", 200, Stony Brook, FCS school. Second team All-CAA 2018 NFL draft, undrafted, signed with the Colts, was on the Bengals practice squad, the Chiefs, active for the Falcons, practice squad for the Broncos, and most recently with the Bucks, active and practice squad. So he traveled a lot, got a lot of experience, so I kind of see the trend going on here. Yeah. Here we go. Guard, offensive line, Vidal Alexander, 6'5", 336, LSU 2016 NFL draft, round 7, pick 234 with the Raiders, 216, 217. Interesting, though, he kind of has a troubled history because he actually did kicked off for not showing the practice, though it was some type of weird thing with the way I was trying to figure that out. Didn't play for a few years. Then he was like that one Texas offensive line the Battlehawks drafted in 2020 that's retired and suddenly unretired.
Yeah.
So football with players is weird sometimes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And he then was with the Maulers. Thank God he's free from Kirby Wilson. And he did well. Actually started 8 games for them. We'll mention about the Maulers here soon, and there's a good reason. Now he's with the Battlehawks, so... Actually, I'm sorry, 9 games. So I honestly see him as one of the starting guards. So it's going to be interesting, the offensive line, because I do see Bushell Beatty and him starting. As of right now, things could change. They got a lot of good. I definitely know who's going to be the starting center. That's definitely a given.
Yeah.
Then number 9, one of the younger ones that's from this draft class, outside linebacker Carson Wells, 6'4", 245, Colorado. Strange, too, because he's one of those white outside linebackers.
Hey, look, it's funny that you mentioned that. 2 positions that we don't see too many more white guys at, outside linebacker and corner. We need some more white corners in the league, man.
There's a lot of white safeties, I'll say that.
Look, because they made that move. You mean we ain't got to try to keep up with these guys no more? Okay, cool.
Yeah, big guy. Started 34 of his 40 games at Colorado, second all Pac-12. Part of the 2022 NFL draft, undrafted, signed with the Bengals. So that's some good defensive there.
Yeah, definitely good experience.
Number 10, inside linebacker Trey Watson, 6'2", 230, Maryland, all ACC, Big Ten. All Big Ten. It's still hard for me to remember. Maryland's in Big Ten, not ACC anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Go Terrapins. NFL Draft 2019 undrafted signed with the Dolphins, was with the he's an original XFL 2020 player, was with the Dallas Renegades, so we actually took someone from them this time.
Right, instead of them doing it the other way around.
So was a starter for the Montreal Alouettes, Elks, and now he's with the Battlehawks. So came to Canada, they came back once the XFL came back. Number 11, this is interesting. Long snapper Alexander Matheson, because we drafted a long snapper, Billy Thomas, from the Jets, that was with the Jets. Did he not sign on the 26th? Or is this some other competition? It's a good question. He was recently with the Baltimore Ravens, undrafted 2022. Interesting though, this might be the biggest long snapper. Tell me if this is, have you heard of these height and weight for this long snapper? 6'5", 245.
Usually your long snappers is what, 5'11", 6 foot?
Yep.
I didn't see too many 6'5" long snappers. Usually they outside tackles.
Like how I mentioned about Tulane running backs, we got one after this one. Running back Darius Bradwell, 6 foot 235, Tulane, 2020 NFL draft, undrafted, was on the active roster with the Chargers, Panthers practice squad recently this year, now with the Battlehawks.
Oh.
Yep.
Seen some NFL locker rooms before.
Now, this is actually my favorite here and the most interesting one. Number 13, Nyquan Murray. 5'9", 193 wide receiver from Florida State. Actually, one of the targets for Orlando Guardians quarterback DeAndre Francis. It's either French or something, how it's pronounced. So
probably his former teammate from Florida State. Yep.
2019 NFL draft, was with the Seahawks, was with the practice squad. Then he went to the Toronto Argos. Then he went to the National Arena League and was a rookie this year and played for the Jacksonville Sharks. Lit it up so good. Mm-hmm. Was all NAL 2022. So I expect him and Austin Pro to fight for that slot receiver role.
Probably.
And I would not be surprised if there's a package with both of them in it.
I mean, from what we know and what we've kind of had hinted at us about the type of offense they want to run, I wouldn't be surprised to see, a bunch of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets.
And honestly, because I talked to somebody that covers all the indoor leagues, and he said that he was above most of the talent that he played with and deserved to be in this type of stuff.
And there's a little bit of pedigree that you would have to go to Florida State in the first place, so I think the Battlehawks probably got a little bit of a steal with that one.
Yeah, and it's hard, too. That's kind of interesting also, too. Then the final supplemental draft pick for the Battlehawks, tight end Charlie Tuamu Pule. So it's a very hard name to pronounce. I apologize. 6'2", 245, Portland State.
Okay.
First All Big Sky, another FCS guy. 2020 NFL draft, undrafted, was with the Cowboys practice squad, Colts practice squad, Niners practice squad, was on the active roster with the Lions, and now he's here with the Battlehawks. So you see a lot of what Beck is going for with some experience and stuff. We did get a little bit of the new guys, like I said, with the guy from Colorado. Like I said, Nyquan Murray's quite interesting. Now, we'll go with just some other notable names here. One is one that's now back, was a big hit with 2020, Eli Rogers.
Yep.
Now he's in Orlando.
Gosh, and remind me, who did he play for in
I believe it was DC the Defenders.
Okay, yeah, I was like, I thought it might have been DC, but I remembered seeing his name a lot in terms of production.
This one's interesting because this is also another top USFL player that played for the Houston Gamblers, William Likely. Oh, he was good. Had 4 interceptions. Here's the thing, too. He's now with the Houston Roughnecks. So he went from one Houston team to the next one, but this one's actually going to play in front of fans in Houston.
Like, look, he might just like the city of Houston, man. Can't blame him.
Reggie Northrup, he's back in the XFL. Hold on, let me see here. I can make it sure I got the right ones here. I'll just go with the list because I don't want to go all through that. And, of course, a big one that's interesting to speak with the USFL, the Arlington Renegades, selected Devon Smith running back. And those who have paid attention here through the USFL. That's the guy that got in trouble on their reality thing on Fox with the Maulers with that whole chicken salad pizza incident. Now he is here with the Arlington Renegades. I am happy for him because honestly, that whole thing was BS. I don't know if you know about that, Josh.
Yeah, look. Raw deal is an understatement. Just put it that way.
And then probably the most notable name out of it all, and you and I talked about it right before, and that, of course, was Josh Gordon.
Yeah.
Former Seattle Seahawk is now a Seattle Sea Dragon. He probably is one of the oldest. I believe he's about 35, my age.
Yeah, that's look, Josh Gordon, man. It's been a lot of turmoil, adversity for him in terms of his career overall. Hope for his sake that this is kind of that chance that he actually takes advantage of to kind of stay on the right path. I know, obviously, battling addiction and all that. So definitely just hope for him that this is a chance for him to not only get back into football, but be able to stay in football this time around. So, I don't know how much is reasonable to expect from Josh Gordon when you talk about, full production for a season, but looking forward to him getting a chance to play for Seattle, and a name that a lot of folks don't know too much here, but I think he might have got drafted by Houston here. Linebacker Aaron, I hope I say his last name right, Adioe, actually former SEMO student. So I've got a chance to see a little bit back in my time in college. So want to make sure to give him a shout out for getting on one of these rosters as well.
So, yeah, the one thing I mentioned about, cornerback named Menders, because right after he got drafted, he actually got signed to the Titans practice squad. So now, let me show you here, because this is now on, let me get out of here. All right, hold on. Dang, mouse. Because now now there's actually roster pages now on each team. There's something called, right now they also have the latest draft picks too, called a reserve list. Because there's a few players on the reserve list, that usually mean they're still on NFL teams, and we're going to see if they accept a futures deal, because one cornerback with the XFL is on a practice squad right now to see if he get a future deal or not. With the Lions, though, that one's going to be quite interesting because the Lions could go into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a wild card with that one, since not only could the Lions make the playoffs, but them making the playoffs is dependent on Seattle.
Bradley, I believe he's with the Steelers, I think. I know he's on a practice squad somewhere, and there's Naquan Murray there, a picture of him. You would not expect he would look like that for being 5'9".
No, gives off a little bit taller in the headshot, but hey, it's from the shoulders up. I guess but so much we can take from it.
Yeah, so it's going to be quite interesting, and like I said, so far they need to get that schedule out soon.
Well, yeah, being a month and a half away from games, you definitely want to get that schedule going. Of course, there were some tweets over the course of the weekend where some speculation that the schedule is already done. They just haven't released it, but there's also some speculation that the schedule isn't quite ready to go. So we'll definitely see how all of that plays out.
Jerry
But I think
Connell wanted Vegas so badly. I get it. That Vegas is such a hotbed for sports right now. Course, Josh covers NBA, and most likely when it expands, Vegas will be one of the expansions.
Yeah, just look. I don't know. There's probably going to be some crossover for folks that, of course, enjoy football and specifically our show. But, folks that also like basketball, just go ahead, mark this down now. Whenever the NBA expands, Vegas is going to get a team, and LeBron James is going to be part owner of that team. Just file that away for later.
Yeah, not even Cleveland. That's sad.
I know, right?
All right. Now that we go from the XFL, now let's go to the USFL, shall we?
Yeah.
They did some signings here. Michigan Panthers. This is definitely a Jeff Fisher signing. Running back Joshua Adams, 6'2", 225, Notre Dame. NFL Draft 2018, signed with the Eagles, was active with them along with the Jets, Saints practice squad. NFL stats, has run for 680 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, Jeff Fisher loves his running backs.
Yep, he does, especially I think he has Matt Colburn back, or am I thinking of a different team? That might be the Stars. I have to double-check that. Memphis Showboats, offensive guard Dustin Burns, Northwestern State, Louisiana. NFL Draft 2020, 6'5", 305. Was undrafted. He actually played, this is interesting, for a football league in France for the Marseille Blue Stars Division I Elite League. Then he was part of the Major League Football that kind of collapsed before it even started.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
Before it shut down.
Bad look for them.
But he also played for the Columbus Lions in the National Real League that got them to the championship. Interesting thing, though, for some reason after that, somehow they got out of, there was a vote and they got voted out. And now they're part of the American Indoor Gridiron League, that new indoor league that's supposed to have a St. Louis team this year, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That might be a different story for another day on that part.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, then Michigan Panthers, another signing, wide receiver Trey Quinn, 6 foot, 200 pounds. LSU, then also Southern Methodist University. NFL Draft 2018, round 7 pick 256. Was with the Redskins / Commanders, then the Jaguars, the Raiders practice squad, and then most recently the Broncos practice squad. Then, of course, you got another Maulers. We'll get to this soon. Quarterback Connor Simpson, 6'3", 211. Not that far from here, Western Illinois. Second team All Missouri Valley, recent 2022 NFL Draft undrafted, was actually part of Lions rookie camp.
There we go.
Then, final summit, it's going to get interesting with this one here. Houston Gamblers signed Jesse Lemire, outside linebacker, DN, that type of rusher, 6'2", 240, Liberty. NFL Draft 2020 undrafted, was signed by the Chargers, part of their practice squad and active. Lions practice squad and active. Cardinals off season. He was actually picked by the Arlington Renegades in the XFL draft, but then decided to sign with the Houston Gamblers. So he was one that didn't choose on December 26th.
Right.
Then here's the thing. Once he signed with the Houston Gamblers, because guess what? We have some trades.
Man.
So, I don't know. It seems like it's kind of collusion in a way, unless there's some type of thing. I did see that maybe some USF teams like, okay, we got some specific assigned teams here that we only scout, so I can understand that.
Yeah.
So, just 3 days after signing with the Gamblers, got traded to the Birmingham Stallions, the defending champions, and they traded for quarterback Motel Cozart. And then the Michigan Panthers also did a trade they sent offensive tackle Cyrus Tuiatale for wide receiver Talala Lamu Jones. Talk about a mouthful on that one. Then something that was quite interesting that I've never have seen in a while in spring football, releases.
Okay. Definitely not something you see very often.
Nope. So, they had to make room. I was kind of curious because, I even asked somebody for the second USFL draft how many rounds are actually going to be, since now they have actually rosters now.
Yeah.
So then their draft probably is not going to happen until at least February or March. Of course, it's not going to be different to see who actually goes there now. Then I'll go, after I'm done, then there's some USFL and also more XFL stuff I want to note as well. Release outside linebacker Terrell Hanks, New Mexico State for the Stallions. Gamblers release cornerback Jerry Conte, William Jewell, D2 school. Outside linebacker Daquan Brown, Central Oklahoma. Offensive guard Eric Brown, Merrimack. Showboats released a lot of people. Cornerback Rashad Kazi, Jr., Central Florida. Cornerback Ronald Howell, Central Florida. 2 straight cornerbacks from Central Florida. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Were they a package deal?
Wide receiver D. Anderson, Alabama A&M. Running back Travius Minters, South Alabama. Offensive lineman James Booth, San Diego State. Offensive tackle Dallas Warmack, Oregon. Wide receiver Hayes Du Bois, Virginia. Panthers release cornerback Joseph Putu from Florida. Safety Karan Williams from Nebraska. Cornerback Dominic Martin, Tarleton State. Edge rusher Adaliwale Aduyo, Utah State, Samoan. And then the Maulers, and this is good. Yeah, I'm going to mention quarterback Vad Lee, their starter from James Madison, quarterback Roland Rivers from Slippery Rock, fullback Mickey Daniel, South Dakota State, and edge rusher Eric Asuna, Western Michigan. Okay, so Vad Lee. Before this release, he kind of let out this interesting text, if you will. Tweet. So let me find him here. Because it's like, is he being, like, it was kind of wondering, like, what did he mean by that? Because he kind of kept it quite open. All right, hold on here. So, there we go. Where is it? There we go. Thank you for my short time as a USFL mauler. All I could say is I never had it easy, but the lessons I've learned along the way is only beneficial to my future. Looking forward to what's next because his best is yet to come. So he apparently knew he was going to be released, and I don't want to say he was one of the best players on that squad. Though to be clear, the Maulers was the worst team in the USFL. Right. And trust me, a lot of people that watch would still wonder why does Kirby Wilson still have a job?
Yeah, I mean,
because I don't know if you saw the games or heard about the chatter. It's just like they're even. For some of the games, even the commentators are like, what is he doing?
Well, and, again, not sure what type of budget the USFL is operating under, but it's probably one of those situations where they've already committed to him, so they don't want to have to go in and basically pay kind of similar situation to what we brought up for Mark Davis earlier, where you don't want to pay two coaches. So that could be a little bit of the reason behind that for Kirby Wilson in Pittsburgh.
I don't know. It's because... I don't know, we'll see how the Maulers do. We'll see, because it looks like they're starting from scratch.
Yeah, a lot of their team
and
is
like I said,
shuffled.
The Battlehawks got one of their starting linemen. So it's like we just have to see. Now, I want to go back to the kind of a rumor thing for the USFL here. Because there's a rumor, because they only have announced 2 hubs so far and not anything else. But this is a rumor here. Supposedly, they have 2 other hubs here. One would be in Detroit that would have the Michigan Panthers, obviously, and the Philadelphia Stars. Now, this rumored 4th hub was a little confusing. It's for the Generals and Pittsburgh Maulers. Now, when I say those 2 names, that's the New Jersey Generals and the Pittsburgh Maulers, where do you think they would be?
Probably Detroit.
Rumored is it's going to be in Canton, Ohio.
Okay.
Now, Canton, Ohio, that's where the USFL playoffs and championship was.
Yeah. Also home to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so it's going to be kind of interesting because, like Birmingham, when they only had 1 hub, you're at least going to have, out of the 3 hubs, a home team there. Now, with the 4th hub, it's in Ohio.
Yeah.
For New Jersey Generals and Pittsburgh. It's going to be interesting to see how many people show up. I know there was playoffs there, but that was for specific teams, and we'll see how it is. That's an interesting experiment, but it's interesting that so far, if this is true, let me say this again, rumor. The USFL has only found technically 3 homes for less than half of their teams right now. I know with the XFL, Vegas still doesn't have their stadium as of yet, but that is at least 7/8 of their league.
Yeah. One team without a stadium compared to what? At this point, you have close to 10 without a stadium in the USFL?
Yeah, so. And then another thing, too, that happened, I'm going to thank for the Marcast with Reed Johnson finding this, is with trademarks, because the USFL apparently had some of the original USFL 3 trademarks that got approved for publication, which is kind of interesting. Denver Gold, the Oakland Invaders, and the Washington Federals. Now, here's the thing. The USFL has already shown that after 1 year, they can move a team like that.
Yep.
The question is, because we talked to Mike, and they're looking for people to buy their teams, but when you look at this and they're able to, because they're, in my opinion, they cannot expand until they first find homes for all 8 of their teams. They can't. Yeah. And by doing this, because, like, here we go, Denver Gold. Do you think they want to root for another football team, especially how the Broncos are doing now? They would most likely play in Mile High.
No, not at all.
Oakland Invaders. You and I have talked about this and with other people. Oakland is pretty damn, like, dead as a sports market.
Yeah.
Like, would they play at the Coliseum? Honestly, if the A's leave for Vegas, they just need to tear that down.
Yeah, I mean, you've already got the Warriors who've made the move from Oakland to San Francisco. You've also got the A's who are potentially moving to Vegas now. The Raiders have moved to Vegas now. Yeah, just I don't really know what Oakland is going to do for you.
And then you got the Washington Federals. They already have a co-line with the Houston market.
Yeah.
Do they want to do that again?
No.
Like,
don't think so.
Here's the thing, because another thing, too, is with the USFL, the president of the USFL, Brian Woods, resigned. Nothing bad or anything like that. He was the one that got these trademarks here. And, of course, there was a little lawsuit with the original USFL owners. Though he did have a little baggage since with the Spring League, they still haven't paid Indianapolis for that hub thing 2 years ago.
Yeah, he might be getting out while the getting is still good in terms of potentially seeing the writing on the wall. If they haven't paid, basically a bill from 2 years ago, not sure what that means for the future for them. Obviously you would hope that they're able to make it work and stick around. Obviously here in this country we love football, so giving us some more options on football is never a bad thing. But doesn't sound like to me that if the league was running in the way that it should be, that you would have somebody that high up resigning abruptly. Sounds a little fishy to me.
Fishy, but I don't know. To me, it's a positive because it got rid of the baggage they didn't need.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think who'll be president would probably be Moose Johnson because he's basically the commissioner anyway, so he's probably going to take over. To me, this is a positive. Now, the reason, hopefully, because I want the leagues to do well, but if they let me be clear, if they keep trying to change location because remember, Moose Johnson, before the first season, said, we choose these 8 specific locations because of the data we had, though the data was old from the 80s.
Crazy.
And they are only using the trademarks they have from the original USFL. I have yet to see a trademark for something brand new. The only thing that came close is that they were trying to actually make a St. Louis Invaders before the USFL season. Yeah. So, I don't know. Now, bring it back to the XFL here, because remember I told you they had a partnership with the Indoor Football League.
Yep.
So there's a chance after the training camp and stuff, there are going to be some player relationships and saying, okay, you didn't make it here, but we'll take you to the Indoor Football League. Because here's the thing, too. One of the newest franchises in the Indoor Football League, the Massachusetts Pirates, and I believe they were either defending champs or 2 years ago defending champs. Guess who's now quarterback for that team? Cardell Jones.
Oh, yeah. And big Cardell, big arm Cardell.
He was very hot and cold for the Defenders in 2020.
Yeah, it wasn't he hot and cold is probably putting it nicely.
Yeah. Though Battlehawks got his center, John Toff, who will probably be the starting center for the Battlehawks. That's who I was remembering. So it's going to be a bit interesting with that relation with the Indoor Football League. And remember, that's also a thing with Oakland, too, because Marshawn Lynch's Bay Area Panthers tried to play in Oakland, but that didn't work either.
Got moved out a little bit, man. So definitely something to keep an eye on. For.
I'm not, as you can see, I'm being both positive and negative, both to the XFL and the USFL here. I don't want to say, oh, you're from St. Louis, you're an XFL homer.
Nope.
Because the XFL yesterday announced that, hey, new year, new hats. Not all the hats are available for the Battlehawks, especially for a flex hat that fits my big old head.
Yeah, gotta be not concerns, not the word, but you would think that there's a little bit more thought and planning put into some of these.
Trust me, once fine, we know what the schedule is. Then, because see, the one thing, because the biggest thing is single game tickets. Because I know they made a lot of money in St. Louis with single game tickets.
Oh yeah,
they already made. Excuse me, they already made a lot of money off season ticket sales. I know this for a fact. So, they also need to make sure they do some more, because they did some stands and stuff at the local market for DC, Houston, and a few other spots. They need to do that here in St. Louis. They have not done that yet, but I would not be surprised if that happens soon. Also, like I mentioned before, we have that new bar. That's now the Armory.
Yeah.
Now the largest bar, and that's perfect because both utilizing both the bird and the military aspect of the Battlehawks, that's what you need to do.
For sure, man. So, I guess down our last 15 minutes or so of the show. Of course, if you're just tuning in, welcome to That's Football. Here sponsored or brought to you by the In the Zone Network, sponsored by Cafe Piazza here in St. Louis, 1600 Arsenal Street. Some of the best pizza in town. Benton Park Arcade, also part of the establishment there at Cafe Piazza. So not only can you get great pizza, toasted ravioli, great alcoholic beverages, non-alcoholic beverages. You can also enjoy some throwback games like NBA Jam. You've got a bunch of different arcade games that are
a lot of pinball, even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles pinball,
skee-ball, pinball, all of any arcade game you can name, they probably have it there down there at that Benton Park Arcade. Again, that's Cafe Piazza, 1600 Arsenal Street here in St. Louis.
Very good fried. Is it squid? Oh no, calamari. Well, that is squid, but
oh yeah, the calamari was amazing calamari. So. Before we wrap up, we've got to talk about the potential, and I do have to say potential NFL Week 18 because we don't know what is going to play out right now with the DeMar Hamlin situation.
Let me double check if the NFL has said anything.
No, I mean, I've been, of course, trying to keep an eye out for some various updates. It does look like, of course, yesterday, or maybe even whether it was late last night or early this morning, DeMar Hamlin's family did put out a statement just thanking folks for their prayers and their continued support, but still not much update outside of that from what we can tell.
Yeah, I don't see much. I know that so far the NFL's only retweeted the Buffalo Sabres, love for 3 for Hamlin, so I don't really see anything, and also Steve Young. So DeMar's, we're praying for you, hoping you wake up, get back into consciousness, and hopefully your heart's okay.
Yeah, definitely hoping for nothing but the best in terms of recovery there for you, DeMar Hamlin. So we'll start in the AFC here because I think they have probably the most interesting race given everything that's going on. So
especially on Saturday.
Well, and you got the Chiefs playing Saturday.
Yes.
Now their game with the Raiders doesn't mean anything at all for the Raiders, but that is a game. Again, we're unsure with how the record situation is going to play out with the Bills and Bengals, but I would believe if the Chiefs, with how things stand right now, if they win that game Saturday, they are the number 1 seed in the AFC.
If they play how they did against the Broncos, I know the Raiders probably they could win. Hey, we beat them, prevented Kansas City getting the home field advantage. That's only one motivation I see with Vegas right now.
Yeah. Now, obviously, the Chiefs, from what we've seen so far, there's no plans to rest anybody. Again, I think if you're the Chiefs, you would love to have the entire AFC have to come to Arrowhead. So definitely a motivating factor for them. Now, they, of course, clinched that AFC 1 seed with the win. They could, again, depending on what happens with the records from this pending Bills-Bengals result with the postponement of last night's game, there's some potential that they, depending on what happens with the Bengals having the tiebreaker over them, that they could fall as low as the 3 seed, but I would imagine they're probably going to be somewhere at 1 or 2. Other games from Saturday night, Jaguars-Titans, that game, winner of that game will win the AFC South. The Jaguars will still have an outside chance at the 7 seed should they lose. unfortunately for them, they are going to need a lot of help if they were to lose that game. So they can still make the playoffs with a loss. However, they would need the Dolphins to lose, they would need the Patriots to lose, and they would need the Steelers to lose. So
that's asking too much.
That's asking a lot. So the easiest way for them, of course, is to win and get in. The Titans, on the other hand, they have to win the AFC South in order to make the playoffs.
And just to remind you, folks, that game is Saturday night. There will be 2 Saturday games. There is no more games on Thursday night.
Yep, no more Amazon on Thursday, at least for this season.
Yeah. Hopefully next year's broadcast is a lot better.
Yeah, you would hope.
Though there will be one more Monday night game when it comes to the first week of playoffs.
Yep.
Now, one thing, too, is that there was a little thing with the Jaguars by putting $1 billion of renovations for that dome, for basically putting a canopy for shade. I just see that one scene from 300 being played a lot because of that.
Oh, yeah. They've got some plans that are being proposed as far as making, I believe it's a $1 billion renovation to the stadium there in Jacksonville. What they have called...
And take away 8,000 seats.
Yeah, so decrease the capacity.
The tickets.
Yeah, that's really what it sounds like to me. They're trying to make some more money down there in Florida. But that kind of the playoff scenarios for those two teams with Jacksonville and Tennessee. Now, Ravens and Bengals, we also not only do we have a little bit of uncertainty with exactly how much this is going to mean for the division championship or what have you. There's also some uncertainty so far at what time this is going to be played.
Yeah, because as you can see from the screen up here, ladies and gentlemen, it's still to be determined. It's going to be on CBS.
Yeah, one way or another, it will be on CBS.
And
but
it's going to be played in Cincinnati.
And the original plan for this game was...
I expect that to go up. There is no way that's going to be stayed at $106 for the lowest ticket.
Well, I mean, being in Cincy, it might be close. Yeah. Now, going into yesterday's game, the plan was for that Ravens-Bengals game for next week to stay TBD until the outcome of last night's game was determined because, of course, going into last night, if the Bengals would have won that game, they would be the AFC North champions. But if they were to have lost that game last night, they would then be in a tie for that AFC North lead with the Ravens, with next week's game being essentially an AFC North championship game for the division.
And
so,
as you said, the Buccaneers stars are going to say so. I expect the Buccaneers to beat the Falcons. They already won the division champion. $31 the lowest ticket at. It's in Atlanta, that's why.
Yeah. Now,
so, Byron, if you want to see a football game, there you go.
There you go. Yeah, go catch you a ticket to that Falcons game. And so, Patriots, Bills, also some playoff implications that will come out of that one. Now, of course, again, Bills are in contention for the 1 seed. Still some uncertainty there, given the result of last night. Patriots will be in the playoffs with a win in this game. So, literally, as simple of a path as you could possibly have there. If they win the game, they are in. Now, their fellow AFC East rivals, the Dolphins and Jets, will also be playing on Sunday. The Dolphins get in with a win and a Patriots loss. The Jets, of course, already eliminated from playoff contention, but can play spoiler to the Dolphins, who will probably be starting Skylar Thompson. So we'll see how that works out for them as far as their playoff hopes go. The other two AFC games with playoff implications, Steelers and Browns, which the Steelers obviously the only team in that game that could potentially make the playoffs. They would need a win and losses by both Miami and New England. Now, given the opponents for those two teams, not as tall of a task as that might have seemed on paper. So Steelers, of course, also trying to keep Mike Tomlin's streak alive of no losing seasons here. And I believe what is now 16 years on the job there in Pittsburgh. So you've also
it's
got...
weird to see a Crucial Stadium, not Heinz.
Yeah,
they have a Heinz area now, but...
Come on, they could have just left it as Heinz Field. We that's what we're going to forever call it.
More, though.
Gosh, good old stadium naming rights. Gotta love it. And then, of course, last for the AFC, you have the Chargers playing the Broncos. Chargers can clinch the 5 seed with a win, and with that would then play whoever the AFC South champion is between Jacksonville and Tennessee, which I would probably say the Chargers would be the favorite in that game regardless of who they play, but we shall see.
And as you can see at Mile High, tickets as low as $21.
Yeah, I don't imagine there's going to be too many Broncos fans turning out for that one.
No, and then actually, if you want to know, that's not even the cheapest.
Oh, well, yeah, Texans Colts, which I know we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier in the show. The Texans are trying to lose so they can confirm that number one pick for themselves.
That's actually the closest game to us for $13.
I mean, you know, if you wanna go watch Davis Mills and Sam Ellinger as your quarterback battle, by all means. We haven't done it quite as consistently here the last couple of weeks, but we can put a big fat circle around that one as your tank bowl for the final week of the regular season.
Tank bowl, see if the Texans get the number one pick or not.
Man, so we'll see if the Texans are able to get that number one pick.
Oh, no, that's not the lowest. Dear Lord.
And $7 for a ticket in New Orleans? Well, I guess they're not playing for much right now. Yeah, not playing for much right now.
This is the quintessential meaningless game.
Oh yeah, literally nothing that can come of this for either team. I think the only meaning for this game, if you're a Panthers either player or fan, whatever, again, seeing if Steve Wilkes holds on to become the head coach after being an interim coach. But, of course, they've already got some coaching interview rumors out there.
Yeah, I hope the Breakers do well as they did last year. So
Right. So, in the spirit of talking NFC South, we'll switch over to the NFC playoff picture, which is a little bit more complete already. You've got the Eagles playing the Giants. Now, the Giants are, regardless of the results of Sunday, they are locked into the 6th seed in the NFC. The Eagles now must win this game in order to maintain the number one seed as well as clinch the NFC East. They would drop to the 2 seed if they lose, but Dallas also loses and San Francisco wins. San Francisco would then become the 1 seed and have home field advantage in the NFC. And they could drop as low as the 5 seed if they lose and Dallas wins, because Dallas would then be the NFC East champion. The Eagles would be going on the road for their first playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
They have Philly as a 14-point favorite. I think that's too high.
Well, I think that's too high because I also think the Giants are going to play their starters.
Okay.
You also have Jalen Hurts planning to play this game, coming off of the shoulder injury that he has that we've already kind of determined cannot get any better this year. That's a game I wouldn't want any parts of as an Eagles fan or somebody that wants to win.
I would put more than 14 for San Francisco over the Arizona Cardinals.
Oh, yeah. So you got 49ers at home against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are not going to stand a chance in this game. The San Francisco 49ers, they know for sure they will be.
J.J. Watt's last game.
J.J. Watt's last game on the road. I'm sure he'll probably get a ceremonial sack of some sort, before that game is over with.
Do that?
I mean, look, if Michael Strahan can get a ceremonial sack for the sack record, I'm pretty sure J.J. Watt can get one in his last game as a NFL player. So 49ers will clinch the 2 seed in the NFC with the win, clinch the number 1 seed with a win and an Eagles loss. At worst, they go back down to the 3rd seed with a loss and a Vikings win. But again, that game against the Cardinals, I'm pretty sure Kyle Shanahan will be able to get his team motivated to get a win in that one. You also have Vikings-Bears, which, of course, Bears, we mentioned they are still in contention for the number 1 pick in the draft.
If the Vikings somehow lose to the Bears, dear Lord.
Yeah, and I mean, the Vikings, they technically don't have much to play for. They will, at worst, be the 3 seed anyway. But they could, of course, get the 2 seed if they were to win and 49ers were to happen to lose.
And here's hoping the Seahawks give the Rams the 12 loss here. And, of course, Seahawks, they're playing for wild card spots.
Yes, so right now the Seahawks are currently holding the final playoff spot in the NFC. However, if they win, they have to hope that Green Bay still loses because Green Bay holds a tiebreaker over them. If they lose, they are eliminated from playoff contention, and the winner of that Lions-Packers game will then move into the 7th seed in the NFC. So, again, it has definitely been a down season and a bad season, to say the least, for the Rams.
Honestly, this is probably our number 1 game to watch here.
Oh, yeah, and that's the reason why they moved it to Sunday night because, again, Cowboys, there's some things that had to happen before they could potentially clinch the NFC East or move up in terms of seeding. But that Lions-Packers game, again, pending the results of the Seahawks game, if the Seahawks somehow lose to the Rams, which, again, it's a game I believe the Rams are going to be up for, Lions-Packers, the winner of that game, moves on to the playoffs. If you're the Lions, probably even, regardless of how things happen with that Seahawks game, probably no better feeling than being able to win and potentially put Aaron Rodgers out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that game is in Lambeau. They won the game that was in Detroit earlier this season. Got to go to Lambeau. Of course, the Packers and their fans are going to be completely riled up for that one come Sunday night. Their temperatures are projected to be about 30 degrees right now. We don't know if that's going to be the same come game time or not.
It was in the 70s here today, dude.
Yeah, Mother Nature having a mind of her own.
We got basically still playing for the NFC East division title with the Cowboys. Now with the Commanders, you were a disappointment.
Well, and again, we kind of mentioned how the Commanders fumbled this situation because they would also still be in contention for a playoff spot this week had they not lost last week with that abominable Carson Wentz performance. So, as you can see, a lot that still needs to be sorted out, a lot to play for a lot of these teams come Week 18 this week, and of course, a lot of interesting playoff matchups that are going to be set for us come this time next week, or so we would hope.
Yeah, we will discuss the results of Week 18 and also the 6 playoff games and preview them. Then we'll see about the XFL training camp. They probably finally announce what the rosters are, including the players that they get from the NFL MI Academy. One thing I wanted to mention, too, with the Vadley situation with the Maulers, because I knew someone named Zach Kellerman that actually interviewed the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Maulers. They said they had a plan for Vadley, so whatever happened in between then and now, that was only a few weeks ago. So
Yeah, crazy times here, craziness going on across all levels of football.
And then, of course, we will break down the national championship between TCU, and we'll see if Georgia becomes a two defending back-to-back national champions, or
repeat
TCU
champions,
pulls up the upset.
Yeah, so, again, it's been a very, very interesting show, and, of course, a lot more interesting football to come here this upcoming weekend.
Hopefully we can break down the schedule, too, from the XFL.
You would hope.
Because I will say this, the CFL has already put out their schedule, too. So,
well, that's a little bit more of a well-oiled machine at this point.
Right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, see you all next week. This is the first show of 2023, the first full year of football.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Boy, it's going to be quite interesting.